America's front line of defense is this computer. It is totally secure. Or is it?
You're really into computers, huh?
Yeah. This computer company is coming out with these amazing new games in a couple of months. I want to play those games. Wow.
What?
We got something.
Games refers to models, simulations, and games that have tactical
That must be
and
them.
strategic application.
Greetings. Game time is near. Shall we play a game?
Love to. Let's play. Global thermonuclear war.
Fine.
All right.
We have a launch detection. We have a Soviet launch.
What the hell?
Missile warning, no malfunction.
Oh my god.
I repeat, confidence is high.
Mr. President, this is Barry for NORAD.
Is this a game or is it real?
What's the difference?
WarGames. Begin playing June 3rd at a theater near you.
Hey everybody, welcome to You Have to Watch This podcast. I'm Allen.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Devon.
And today we're going to play a game. WarGames. This is a film that my wife has been bugging me about since the day we met. It's a film that I had never seen, and Devon, you've never seen this one before, right?
No, I've never seen it either.
All right, so we're going to go to master of all things 80s for this show. Ryan, take it away.
Okay, so I'm not master all things 80s. I think that goes to your wife, Alan. I think that goes for master
for this
of
show.
all things 80s.
For this show.
Yeah, for this show. Okay. So, WarGames was released in 1983. It was directed by John Badham. Yes, I had to look at my phone for that. John Badham. Badham? Okay, something. One of those pronunciations.
Badham. Bad ham.
I like that one. We're keeping it.
Okay, so before we get into, like what you guys thought, this and that, I just wanted to give some, starter information on this. So, like I said, this film came out in 1983, but it was shopped around the studios for, 5 years to 4 years prior to this, because all of the studios were looking at this film idea and script and going, what is this? Is this science fiction? This doesn't seem like it's based in any kind of reality. And then eventually they went to MGM with it, and MGM looked at it and said, oh, this is computer stuff. This all makes sense. So they finally went along with it, and then the movie was almost scrapped because the writers didn't think the storyline was plausible. And then in 1981, 1982, news broke that the United States almost kicked off World War III because somebody forgot to take out a war game simulation floppy disk out of a computer at NORAD. and the next shift came in and didn't know that was a simulation. And they started going down to the different DEFCON scenarios and almost kicked off World War III.
Oh, wow.
So when that news broke, the writers that were, the newly hired writers that were brought on to iron out the script decided to be no, this is actually plausible, so we're just going to continue with it. So, yes?
I just wanted to ask, when did you first see this movie?
Let's see. Well, I first saw this when I was about 10, so 95, 94, 95, 96. It wasn't a movie that was really on TV for some reason. I don't ever really remember this being on TV prior to moving to Pennsylvania. But I remember watching it thinking it was, really cool, especially since 95, my parents got our first computer. And so we were, just messing around with it. Then all of a sudden I see this movie where it's oh, cool, I can do this. And of course, no, I can't. Not in the 90s anyway. So, given both of you hadn't seen this before, but both
Correct.
of you have the same experience with this film that I want you guys to dive into.
I'd say
So
yeah.
by all means, go ahead.
Well, there are two references to war games in pop culture that I think Devon and I are familiar with. I think what Ryan's getting at is the chapter in Ready Player One where Wade Watts has to recreate the movie WarGames.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought about that the whole time watching this movie, by the way.
I figured you would.
Especially that opening scene. Because I reread the audiobook of Ready Player One before Ready Player Two came out. And I was like, well, we need to do this on the podcast. But like, I remembered like him going in and seeing his reflection in the game. It's like, oh, that's cool. Like it's from what I could remember. I didn't get the book out and like follow it. I should have, but I didn't. But no, so I knew that, and Ryan has had a problem with that since we told him about it.
Because we haven't seen it, right?
Well, no, it was Devon. It was actually you. And it was more or less a joke, and then we just continued with it. It was one of those things where it was like, you guys were talking about it, then I said, hey, you guys really need to see this movie then. And then Devon, you said, I don't need to see it. I read the book, and I was like, what book? And you said Ready Player One. And I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Because that just fell in line with all the other stuff you say. What? Just like the last episode. What? Mayo chips, disgusting, no matter where you are.
Hold on, me being reductionist about a movie, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't sound like me at all.
That never happens.
Never.
Yeah, exactly.
RoboCop.
So it was one of those things where it was more or less a joke on my end. I just thought it was funny because I knew we were going to get to this. And regardless if your opinions on what you thought the movie was going to be has changed or not, I'm just happy you guys watched it. Yeah.
So the other pop culture thing is... Either you want to take a guess? It's a brief thing.
No. What is it?
I'm always at a loss when you do stuff like this.
So in Captain America Winter Soldier, when they go into the bunker and find Zola, the computer, Black Widow says to Captain America, do you want to play a game? And she's like, it's from a movie. He's like, yeah, I know. I saw WarGames. So we finally caught up with Steve Rogers.
I love that. I forgot that reference.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
It probably helps that I've been rewatching the Marvel movies to get hyped for WandaVision.
So, Alan, does your life feel more complete now that you know where those references are from and have seen the whole have seen it in its entirety?
So for me, I can know where a reference comes from and still appreciate it, even if I don't know the thing. Like I can appreciate a good, one doesn't simply walk into Mordor joke, even though I haven't really seen Lord of the Rings. I've seen most of them, but not the whole way through. Okay. I don't need to have 100% knowledge of a thing to appreciate a joke to it. Like, okay, I know enough that I pick up on stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, because I know a lot of references to a lot of movies that I haven't seen, and will use those references, and I don't really care that I haven't seen it, which, I get it. It's doing disservice to the source material. I need to watch it. I need to understand what I'm making fun of, but also,
Yeah. It also helps that I watch The Simpsons a lot, and they beat me to watching things that they make references to. I've never seen Citizen Kane, but I saw the episode about Mr. Burns' teddy bear. So
perfect.
Okay, so what were you guys expecting going into this before you actually watched it?
For me, I was expecting Matthew Broderick in a bunker playing games against a computer the whole time. A lot of typey, hacky type stuff. Yeah. I was expecting a lot more of that. I wasn't expecting kind of a road trip on the run movie.
Okay.
I was expecting kind of the same, Matthew Broderick is this super hacker who knows better, computers better than anyone else. And all of a sudden he happens upon this computer that's playing this, simulated war game, and only he can stop it. And the whole world's relying on him to use a super hacker computer knowledge. And I didn't expect it to be a moral, I didn't expect it to be a morality thing in the end either. Not to spoil anything, but the movie has a moral message to it, and that ends up being kind of what Matthew Broderick uses and not his super skill with a computer. You know what I expected this movie to be The Wizard. Do you guys know that reference?
I know that reference.
Willow?
You're talking
It's
about
true.
the glove thing, right?
The Power Glove.
Yeah, the Power
I
Glove.
expected Matthew
Oh,
Broderick
okay.
at the end to put on the Nintendo Power Glove and be like, "It feels so bad." Like that's what
It's 1983.
So the Nintendo. I don't know. What was Nintendo doing then? Nothing.
Game and Watch. Game
Game
and
and
Watch.
Watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was going to be
Pawn.
a Game and Watch. I was expecting something like that, like where it was. I expected to be more of like glorifying technology and not what it was. I think.
Okay. And right now I am Googling the Nintendo Power Glove because I want to make sure that I wasn't the idiot in that conversation.
It's the Infinity Gauntlet before the Infinity Gauntlet.
Guys, I want one of these.
That's where
Like,
that's
real
actually
bad, though.
where Marvel got the idea for the Infinity Gauntlet was the Power
Is it
Glove.
really?
No.
Oh, I would have believed it. You could have kept going, and I would have believed that.
I could
Oh,
have.
good. I was right. 1989, the Power Glove came out.
Okay.
The Nintendo Power Glove.
Couple years.
Couple years.
Couple years.
With a snap of your fingers, you can break it immediately.
Yeah. A lot can change in 7 years. Anyway,
Ouch.
so that was your guys' thought about what you were getting into. Even though you read those parts in Ready Player One, that's still what
Yeah.
you thought. Okay, so what did you guys think of it? Just general, like spoilers, doesn't matter. This movie came out more than like 30 years ago, so.
I like the overall message of it a lot. I think that it definitely had its movie. It was a movie with a point, and I liked the point that it was trying to make. And I think that part of it resonated with me a lot more than I thought the movie itself would. I figured this was just gonna be like a fun popcorny '80s movie, and by the end, I was like, yeah, all right. I thought that overall it was inconsistent in some places, and I have a few questions. But I think that as a whole, I liked it.
Okay.
It was weird seeing Matthew Broderick so young. Like, I'm used to young Matthew Broderick. I'm used to, like, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, even Godzilla. Young Matthew Broderick. I wasn't used to baby-face Matthew Broderick.
He made the joke. He made the joke like it doesn't happen. Like, well, if you're over 17 or under 17, you're fine. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
ew.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. It was pretty straightforward. I enjoyed it. Like that's pretty much all I have to say until we get into more stuff about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was glad it wasn't all like typey, hacky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just gonna be my phrase for tonight's episode is just hacky, typey.
Perfect.
Every time you say hacky, I think of a hacky sack. So whatever.
It fits.
Okay, so Alan, you touched on Matthew Broderick's character.
Yeah.
What did you think of the CD? And her last name is
Ali Sheedy?
Ali Sheedy. How did you feel about her character?
I liked her character. I wasn't surprised when it gets to the point where he's like, I need help. I need a plane ticket from here to here. And then she shows up. I was like, yeah, that's what she does. That's Ali Sheedy. I like Ali Sheedy in everything that I've seen her in. I haven't seen her in much lately, but Breakfast Club, Short Circuit, and now this. She had a good run in the 80s. And she's still acting in smaller stuff now. But no, I liked her. I like the whole Brat Pack connection stuff outside of the Brat Pack movies.
Mm-hmm.
She frustrated me a little bit in this movie only because they didn't define the relationship between her and Matthew Broderick the whole time. And I'm like, what are you? Like, a lot of the times I was wondering, like, what is that relationship? Like, are they, like, dating forever and they're just comfortable with each other? Are they, like, flirting? Or is she just, like, a really good friend and just hanging out with a lot of this, like, for a lot of this stuff and just feels like she needs to help him out? And the fact that they didn't define the relationship completely, like, I know they kissed on the boat, neat. But, like, the fact that they didn't define the relationship made the beginning part confusing to me, I think.
Okay.
Well, because I wanted to know.
Which part?
Just when she was like, "Yeah, I'll go into your room. Are you gonna change my grade and I'm gonna leave? Got it." Or like she just like seemed like way too comfortable with him right off the bat, and I didn't know where any of that was coming from, and it felt like it was there because he needed a romantic like person, like there had to be some romantic element to it because it's a teeny thing.
So the way I read that opening scene was like in the classroom they kind of flirt with each other, like she giggles at his jokes, and then like they flirt, and then she rides over to his place on her motorcycle, which was different.
She's so cool.
Yeah.
Scooter.
But so I
it
feel
makes
like,
a difference.
I feel like they were flirting the whole time, and I think you were only supposed to. I only took it as they were flirting. I didn't take it as they were dating. I think it was these two like each other, but they're both too chicken shit to do anything about it. That's the way I read it. So,
I mean, I can see that. I think at some point, like, if Matthew Broderick had a friend in this movie, I needed that friend to be like, hey, check out that character. I know you want to date her soon. And then I would have been fine with the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I just needed, like, someone to put a quick label on that for me, I think.
See, to me, it read as, like, the beginning of a friendship. Like, obviously, she had never been over before. But at the same time, obviously, they knew about each other because they sat right next to each other in class. And since they both have the same grade, an F, to me, they're constantly going back and forth with like jokes and stuff in class. So to me, that read as like the beginning of a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And her just having a like, I guess, bubbly personality.
Yeah.
Because she definitely did. One of the things I like about one of the things I like about her character and also the actress who played her and Matthew Broderick was that parts of this movie was ad-libbed.
Really?
And the part where she traps him in her legs when he's walking across the bedroom is one of them. She just did that because that felt like something that the character would do at that time. So, knowing that some of the interactions they had were ad-libbed makes me like her performance even more. Because when I first watched this as like a 10-year-old, and then, I mean, I really liked it, and then like as I watched it as I got older, I don't know, I kind of felt like she was just in there to be like the, his potential girlfriend. Like, the personality, this and that, like it seemed too simple, like it seemed too like inserted. But then the more I found out about how they filmed the movie and how she played her character, the more I appreciate it, and the more it feels genuine, actually.
Okay.
So you bring up a good point, and I had a question about this, and I wanted to get your guys' read on this. What movie is this? Like, is this like what genre would this fall into? Is this like a Black Mirror type thing where this is like a cautionary tale about technology? Is this a comedy? Is this like just an 80s movie, Devon, shut up, stop thinking about it? Because here's where I'm at in my head, right? I turn on the movie. I'm going to spoil the first minute for everyone. We turn on the movie. These people show up at this house. This house is clearly a military base. These people go into this top secret bunker that's really heavily fortified. They both bring a gun. They pass a sign that says, "No urinating or you'll be evicted." And I went, oh, this is a comedy. Got it. Who the hell's going to pee on the wall of a top secret military bunker? They're trying to be like glib and funny about this. But then the scene that takes place just feet away from this "don't pee here" sign is very serious and very tense. And like, there's a lot of stuff like that in this movie where I'm like, look at you going, movie. And then I go, oh, but you're being very serious about this.
Well, I could explain that a bit.
Do it. I mean, I want to hear.
They had a different director on for the first 2 weeks.
Really?
They had a different director on, and the initial storyline was supposed to be that the initial storyline was that this was supposed to be a serious, dark drama movie about a kid and a friend that accidentally hack into this like computer system, and they figure out what it is, and they do some nefarious things to like troll Like, that's
Right.
what this was supposed to be. And then the studio didn't like what they were seeing. So, in fact, there were 2 scenes that were already filmed. One was it him hacking the payphone?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that was already filmed, and the silo scene was already
Got it.
filmed, if I'm correct on that. And the studio didn't really like where they thought it was going, so they brought in the guy who made the Short Circuit movie, or who eventually made the Short Circuit movie, and he Badham. I'm just gonna call him Badham. He made this movie more lighthearted. So, I mean, I could definitely see this as being like a cautionary tale with a bit of like humor thrown into it, but it's also heavily 80s. But this is also like the start of like the hacker movie genre, if you want to call it a genre.
It's definitely a genre. It's definitely a genre.
Yeah.
This, in fact, actually, one of the things I found out today, that the term firewall, the first time that word was ever used in a major motion picture relating to computers was in this movie. And in fact, some people say that this might have been the beginning of that, because the writers did have to kind of make some stuff up in the script.
Right. I mean, they had to have.
So there's a possibility that that's in there, but they also talked to hackers when they were writing the movie,
Oh, that's cool.
like early hackers. So, I mean, the term was probably around before then. It was just like it wasn't official lingo yet.
So for me, I think this film, I didn't think of it from the Black Mirror angle, which I really like, Devon.
Yeah.
I look at it as like a pre-disaster movie, like what happens before the nukes go off, but also like Cold War propaganda. Because
Okay,
it's
I can
Cold
see
War
that.
as fuck.
Oh, it really is, though.
And it's a lot of... Yeah, it's just... I don't think you could make a movie like this today and have it be as believable. I think the Cold War adds so much to this movie. I don't think it'd be that believable to have the end game be the grand scale that it could potentially could be in this. I don't think you could have today without the USSR versus the US. Like, I think those two, like, just the way all the nukes would fall adds to the end of this, and I don't think you can get away with something like that on that scale today. Not saying that other people don't have nukes, but they're not all in the same place.
Well, and our national defense isn't 90% geared towards an all-out, mutual assured destruction strategy. Right. That's no longer a thing. So, I mean, yeah, this movie's definitely dated based on that alone. But yeah, no, and I feel like this is like anti-Cold War propaganda because of the end message of the movie.
Oh no, it definitely it's Cold War era propaganda. Like, it's like, hey, we shouldn't be in this Cold War.
Okay, that's what you meant.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear that,
I'm not saying
I
like,
think of
oh
what
yes,
each
like,
government's did.
We need all of these nukes. No, it's no. We should. In the words of Superman, we should get rid of all nuclear weapons. Superman 4: Quest for Peace.
So with all of that in mind, then, was the fact that this, highly advanced, very strategic, very, super computer, is the fact that it's called the Whopper supposed to be funny?
Took me out of it completely. I was like, okay, really? The Whopper?
That is like straight out of like a Bill Murray movie. Like, that's a Ghostbusters scene where they're like, here's this high-tech piece of equipment. It's called the McChicken. And I'm like, yeah, that's funny.
It would have been really great. Like, was Macintosh a thing in '83?
Yeah, I think it was.
Like, if they just had like a big, giant Macintosh computer there. So you got the Whopper and then the Big Mac.
Big Mac, right. Like, that's funny. Like, and I giggled at it a couple of times, but then the movie kept playing it straight and no one called it out. And I went, was I not supposed to laugh at that?
Well, they say what it stands for, which is War Operation Plan Response.
And in the acronym totally makes sense, but on the other hand, like it almost feels like that was an acronym they worked backwards from. Like where they're like, we're really going to call this thing ARMED. And then they're like, what could ARMED stand for? Like it almost felt like that.
No,
I don't know. And yeah.
The Whopper definitely seems like it was intentional as a joke.
Like it was supposed to be funny. Yeah.
But it doesn't fit the tone of the movie at all.
Yeah, which is one of those reasons why, like, I've always kind of like, I've always realized that's been there, but there's been no reference at all in the rest of the movie with any other joke even relating to something like that. So I just kind of like, well, this is just whatever, somebody made it up. Like it's not even a thing for me anymore. It's called the Whopper.
Yeah, it's just what it is. It's
I prefer the double Whopper with cheese. So,
do you know how bad cheese messes up computer boards and circuit boards?
No, but there's one.
I wouldn't want cheese in that. Oh.
So, speaking of tone of the movie, I'm going to say I knew about the opening scene of this movie where Matthew Broderick's playing Galaga because of Ready Player One, so I knew what to expect when we introduce him. I'm going to be honest, I didn't expect the background music that they introduced him to, and I totally pulled a Devon on here. So this came out, like I started watching it, and what the song is called Video Fever, and it's performed by the Beeps, they're called. Yeah, so Video Fever by the Beeps come on, Matthew Broderick is playing Galaga, and I went, this is a horrible song to introduce our main character. I'm so mad at this movie. This takes me right out of it. But dang it, if that song didn't get stuck in my head and I listened to it the whole way through for real a couple of times, and now I get it. But like, did you guys have that same like visceral reaction to it that I did, where it's like, ugh?
I didn't, because as soon as they showed him playing Galaga, I pulled a Tony Stark. Like, that man is playing Galaga. You didn't think anyone would see him, but we did.
And to me, it's the early 80s. It's a pop song from the early 80s. It fits.
Like, for me,
and it's a song and it's a song that sounds like it would be playing in a place like that.
It has that weird like Pac-Man fever quality to it that I really hate, where it's like you can tell that like somebody called the Beepers made this song because isn't it funny that kids are playing video games in arcades? We'll cash in on this now. Or like why that like Star Wars disco song happened.
Because money.
And like I don't know.
Okay, so
yeah.
Did you look up anything else about that band, like how old they were or what other songs they've done? Because I will only agree to that idea if the rest of their catalog sounds like, I don't know, country or like synth pop. Well, no, the song was synth pop. I mean, it's...
I know, but I did find the video online of this song where the lyricist and singer to this song, Cynthia Morrow, comments on it just to say that she did it. I like did that. I'm like, my research is done. I found her.
That's fine. Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, to me, something like that, it's part of it. Like, to me, every time I've seen this, it starts, and I'm like, oh, cool, a song about an arcade. He's in an arcade. It's the early 80s. It sounds like a song that'd be playing in an arcade in the early 80s.
Sure.
I miss arcades.
No, I totally do too.
You don't?
Why
not?
I like the games we have now. I can only remember... Okay, here. Serious answer. There's only 2 arcade games I remember that made any impact on me. And it was a Terminator game where you were a human and they had like the gun mounted on the actual thing.
Yeah.
And then you would do that. And Cruising USA. It was eventually turned into an N64 game. Those are the only 2 arcades. To me, I think of arcades. I think of games like Centipede and Street Fighter. And I was never a fan of like fighting games. I was never good at fighting games, so I never played them. And the whole like thing, like what he was playing, Galaga. I'm not a fan of games like that either anymore. So
For me, it's just the experience of walking into a place and having all of these video games available to play and having the
It's
tokens.
the appeal of It's the appeal of the barcade. Like why I love those so much.
that's fine.
And you're also missing the best arcade game, Dance Dance Revolution. So I am Lord of the Dance.
For me, my go-to arcade game is Time Crisis. Doesn't matter which one, but just the,
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
the way that the video game controller gun reloads and like the clicking of it, it's just amazing to me.
Okay, so this probably gets into my personality a bit. Like, you guys know that I'm a huge sports fan. I love going to sporting events. I hate having to walk in and out of the stadium before and at the end of the games.
Because the crowds?
I show up at least 3 hours before a game starts with Kristen. We wait in line. We're usually the first 100 people into the stadium. I sit out. We go into the restaurant. We watch batting practice. And then as soon as they open up the rest of the stadium, we go find our seat. We did that in Pittsburgh when I saw the Blackhawks. We've done that at every baseball game that we've been to. I hate thick crowds. In fact, we went to New York City the one year, and we went to Times Square in like the middle of the holiday season, and I almost had a panic attack. Like it's like I'm fine in like medium-sized crowds and smaller, and I'm not claustrophobic, but there's something about arcades when they're packed that just makes all of my senses go to 10.
It's just
and
too
like
much.
I smell everything, I see everything, I hear everything, and it's too much.
There's an arcade near us at one of the malls.
Hagerstown.
Hagerstown, yeah. And every time I've gone in there, it's been empty just because of the time of day that I go. And it's phenomenal. Like an empty arcade to yourself is kind of sad, but also amazing because you don't have to worry about like upsetting little kids if you don't want to get off of your game right away.
Exactly. You can pop in another quarter and not worry about it.
Exactly.
Which is fine about it. Yeah.
And they have like
That's
some
really
of they have some new stuff, but they have a lot of old stuff that I'm like, who did they get this from? Like whose garage were they crawling in?
Where did
Where
they
they found
find
this?
That's
Yeah.
like the only appeal of like Dave and Buster's for me is like I, as an adult, will not be judged for playing this game drunkenly because everyone else around me is also a drunk adult.
Devin, next
Yeah.
time you're in town and after COVID passes, we need to go to Dave and Buster's.
Yes, we do. Absolutely.
When
Ryan-
school's in session.
Yes.
Yes,
Dave
also
and
that.
Buster's on a Wednesday afternoon is the best time to go.
And I'll go too. Like I said, when it's
Yes.
like when it's not packed, I'm fine. But like a packed arcade is like one of my like
Just a
no-go
nightmare.
places. Yeah, no, I don't. So getting back to the film, and before we get into the historical aspects of this, because this movie changed a lot for governmental policy reasons, and we'll get into that. You guys kind of know that because I know that was referenced in Ready Player One a little bit because like I read like half the book and they mentioned about how like the movie, like, you know, Reagan saw it and stuff changed because he realized something. But let's go through the movie. So he's trying to find this computer gaming company and hack into their system to play the game. All of that, from him hacking in to the government finding him and him getting like abducted or arrested in the whole like unmarked van style. What did you guys think of like just the storyline, just the movie on its own?
I find it funny that he was trying to get games and that's how he came across this computer. I didn't expect that aspect of it. Like he was pretty much trying to hack the Steam store in the 80s.
Right.
That's what it
Yeah,
came
pretty
down to.
much. Yeah.
I didn't expect that. So I really enjoyed the irony of that. I think one thing from the beginning of this that I wanted to ask you guys was, if you could get away with it without anyone knowing, would you have hacked in and changed your grades? And if so, which class?
I would have done it for math. I would have done it for specifically my senior year. I had trig. And the teacher pulled me aside one time in trig and said, I don't know how you're going to pass this class, to be honest with you, which is a horrifying thing to hear from a teacher. I passed it, by the way, with a C, so barely.
Nice.
And also them freezing our grades definitely helped me.
Let's not bring up that can of worms again. Son of a bitch.
I
still
would have
mad.
changed it to an A. I love it.
I'm
It was
still
my
mad
favorite
about
thing.
that.
Yeah, but that's definitely what I would have done. That would be the grade that I would change, and I would do it in a heartbeat.
Ryan, how about you?
What about you guys?
I would have broken into my college. It would have been college, and it would have been my photography class, because I got a D- when I should have gotten a B. And I tried to fight the grade by contacting the professor and going about legal channels, but he took a leave of absence and left the very next day after the semester ended, and didn't tell anybody, didn't tell any of the students, and he lied to me, which is why I got the D- instead of a B. I'm still
awful.
very, very bitter about this.
I can tell.
I would change my college grade for math. That way I didn't have to take the same math like twice. Because that was the biggest pain. Because when you get TAs teaching a class and they just don't care and just put everything online, it sucks. So that's what I would change.
Yeah.
I did pretty good in high school. College, my grade suffered a little bit more. So
I have an embarrassing, very quick story about grades that I want to tell really quick because it's like a typical me story. I was in college and I had this professor that I was an English major for a long time, and I was pretty good at being an English major, not to brag. But one of these papers that I did like really well on, I like really researched, really like put a lot of my heart and soul on it, got an F. And I was really mad because I was like not an F student. So I went to the professor. I went, "Professor, I don't think I deserved this grade." I said, "And here's why." He goes, "I gave you the grade I gave you. It's over. I'm not touching it anymore." And I'm like, "That's ridiculous." I said, "I think it deserves a second chance." He goes, "No, I just wanted the damn things over with," and walked away. And I went, "This is awful." So that semester, I wrote him the most scathing teacher review ever. I said, "There's a time in every teacher's life when they need to decide to give up and leave the education field. You've clearly hit it." I like just tore into him. I'm like, he's given up as a person. He's given up as an educator. That was the semester his wife passed away. He graded those papers after attending her funeral. I didn't know that until after I wrote that review. Guys, I am a horrible person.
No, you're not.
You don't know.
No.
You didn't know that.
Guys, I feel so bad about it. Like, I think about this often. Where like, I made that guy's awful semester even worse.
I get that he was having a hard time. I completely sympathize, but I hate the mentality of people trying to power through stuff like that. Like, I get it. They don't want to miss work. They feel like they have responsibilities. And when you're upset like that, the best thing to do is to go do something, to like keep your mind busy. Completely. I get it. I understand it. But you have to let somebody know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He should have handed all of that off to like the college, letting them know what happened, and that's how that should have went, and you should have been able to get your grade fixed. So
that makes me feel so much better.
So granted, yes, did everything you said probably shouldn't have said, probably, but at the same time, it's that I really hate that whole power through mentality. Like, no, he should have told somebody and got somebody else to cover the class.
So real quick before we move on, I have a story that's in the middle of both of yours.
Oh my gosh.
So I had a professor for a film class where I had to write a paper talking about the connections between three films. So I wrote this amazing paper about J.J. Abrams and how he deals with the father-son dynamic throughout all of his work. Super proud of this paper. Spent a whole bunch of time working on it. It was the best thing I wrote in college.
Yeah.
I handed in. I passed the class. Never got the paper back because the teacher died.
Oh no.
So I never got any feedback on it, but I know it was good.
You show up at the funeral, you're like, "I'm so sorry for your loss." Did he say anything about my paper?
Exactly. I didn't do that. Friend of the show, Chad did. No, I'm kidding.
No. Oh, no.
I just think it's amazing that my story is like in the middle of both of yours.
Literally the center of these two stories.
All right. Anyway, back to WarGames.
Right.
Okay. So you were fine with like how it evolved, and you didn't feel that anything was too out of place with it, with him doing the whole like I'm just looking for a game, because one of the lines that I really like in this is when the FBI agent goes, he says he was looking for a toy company, and then the general leans back and goes, yeah, I buy that. Goes,
The only thing that stuck out to me at the beginning of this film that was odd was the dad with the ear of corn and the butter bread.
They
You've never
wanted
seen
you
that
to know
before?
how he butters his bread.
I've never seen anyone do that before. I meant to get an ear of corn to do it for the show, but I forgot.
Hold on. Was it supposed to be weird? Because like the camera really wanted you to know how he butters his bread.
I don't think it was meant to be weird, but I was like, that is genius. Why didn't I think of that?
My grandfather did that, and so does my uncle. You guys have never seen that before.
No.
Never. No.
I'm of the school of you take the ear of corn and you just roll it on the stick of butter.
Exactly. It's the corn butter. You sacrifice it.
When we moved to Pennsylvania, I saw a lot of people doing that, like at friends' homes, and I thought it was the weirdest thing. And then I asked for a loaf of bread once when I was like in elementary school. I was over for some kid's birthday, and I asked for like a slice of bread, and we were eating like a picnic, and I just got the weirdest looks from people. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll just do it too. When in Rome, do what the Romans do. And I just never thought about it since. And now that you're saying that it's weird, it's got to be a Pennsylvania thing.
It might be, but like I really like it because like I love the amount of time that the movie spends on you knowing how he butters the corn.
Which has nothing to do with the rest of the movie.
No?
Well, it gives time for that scene gives time for you to see the dynamic between him and his parents, because in no other scene in this besides them yelling at him to take the garbage out do you get an idea about the dynamic between him and his parents. Prior to him looking on the TV and seeing that they, freaked out NORAD. Because you get the mom on the phone, you get the dad paying no attention to it. You see him looking at the magazine and leaving the table, and they just don't care. They're just like, oh, he's going to his bedroom to eat dinner. It's no big deal. Our only child. We haven't even talked to him. And then, of course, the mom's a weirdo. He's like, it's raw. Like, oh, I know. You can taste the vitamin A and D in this or whatever. It's like, he's like, yeah, but could we cook the corn and have pills?
No, they did a really good job of showing me the type of parents that would let a kid have a full-on real door lock on his door with him being the only person that has the key to it. Like, because that would have never flown with me when I was in high school. I could not have locked myself in my room like that.
Yeah, me neither.
I had a lock on my door.
Like one that you had a key to though, like.
Well, I mean, not a key, but you could do the whole. I mean, no, not a key. I mean, I know that he had a key, but at the same time, he also had all of that equipment, and he even said that he asked for a car and they gave him a computer. And to be perfectly honest, for 1983, with that type of tech in his bedroom, and I was a parent, I'd buy a deadbolt.
I get that.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, I was also an only kid just like him, so I mean, maybe it's an only kid thing.
Maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah. So, going forward from there, do you feel that the disbelief of the FBI and the computer scientist at NORAD and the general of his story, did you find that believable?
They don't even question him. Like, they have it so dead set that this is what happened. They don't even question him, really. The only one who does is Dabney Coleman, and even he only gives him half of his attention. So, that took me out of it a little bit, especially when I saw the principal from Back to the Future. I was like,
that was who that was, right?
Yeah, that
Good.
is.
Okay.
So, yeah, I didn't really believe that. as much. We also picked a weird week to watch a movie that deals with this kind of stuff. Because I was distracted by all of that while I was watching a little bit, so...
No, I think I'm the opposite. I think I really did like that scene where they made up their minds about what he was doing there.
Mm-hmm.
They're the experts, they're the adults, and they know his role in this. And the part of it that actually sold me on that was them going, okay, yeah, but you even bought a flight to Paris to get away from us, didn't you? And like in the movie, that was just him being like, no, I'm just, look at that, I can book you a flight to Paris, the city of love. But then it was like, it looked malicious.
You see, for me, that I've seen that before. They did that in the Jim Carrey movie Yes Man, where he says yes to everything. Like him and his girlfriend, Zooey Deschanel, are like traveling all over the country and just going to random places. He gets a mail order bride from Russia. Like all this stuff that makes him look suspicious. So when he's questioned by the FBI, they're like, they have this list of things that he's been doing. He's like, no, I can explain. So when they had that happen in this, I was like, oh, I saw this in Yes Man.
I don't know. For some reason, I really liked that whole, like, look, I'm just a kid. I'm trying to find a computer game. I'm not this, like, serious hacker. And them, like, saying no and will not hear anything else. I related to that and really liked that.
Well, that and because it's the early 80s. We're still steeped in the Cold War. And what I thought Allen meant at the beginning, you had, at this point in the early 80s, you have two fully grown generations in this country that have been saturated in U.S. government Cold War propaganda and fear of communists. And of course, he's a young kid, and he says this, he's alienated from his parents. He's an overachiever. He's intelligent, but he underperforms. He's perfect for recruitment, and what he means is perfect for recruitment for the Soviets to do what they want him to do. And to me, I hate it every time I see it because it's so believable for that time. Like I can completely see a general, the guy who's running NORAD, two FBI agents, like a White House aide that's there to communicate back and forth. I could totally see them going, no. There's no way a kid from the suburbs could do this. He has to have gotten help, which gets to what this movie did in real world for us. So in the 80s, there was an act passed called the Computer Abuse Act that was basically the first federal law against hacking. That happened because of this movie. Reagan saw this. The next week, during a meeting, he brought this up, and he asked his defense secretary to look into it. And they looked into it and realized, our computers are vulnerable to this exact thing. Wow. So about 1 year later, they passed that act and they fixed all of the issues that they had. So in 1983, before this movie happened, there was no Whopper to hack into, but something like this could have happened. And like I said before, we almost started World War III in the early 80s because somebody forgot to take a floppy disk out of a computer. So...
I mean, Reagan's also the president who saw Star Wars like, hey, let's put lasers in space. So...
And didn't he call it Star Wars?
Yeah, it's called Star Wars.
I love it. Look, I don't care anything like how much that man watched movies and made policy based on his movies. I think it's such a good idea because if that could have happened, I'm glad we caught it now, with a movie. I'm glad Matthew Broderick brought it to the world stage and not an actual hacker.
It's weird though because it's also kind of like Bill Clinton seeing Independence Day in 1996 is like, okay, but what if 15-mile wide spaceships did come down and blow up the White House? What happens then? What's our plan for this?
I love that though.
Yeah. So I mean, this movie did just like in Ready Player One, they touched on it, but I mean, like, this movie did affect policy and did affect the way the U.S. deals with, cyber. And right now, we're in a whole new generation of it. And if anybody's been paying attention to the news the past 2 weeks, they'll see that every single defense computer system in our country was hacked, and they didn't know about it for 6 months. So... Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where the hackers always have the advantage. The people playing defense always have, they're always behind.
It's been such a crazy week news-wise, I completely forgot about that story.
Yeah, isn't it crazy?
It was all over the news prior to Wednesday.
Yeah.
So,
oh, man. What a week.
So, yeah.
It's
Tuesday. On that note then, would this message of this movie hold up today? So the message of the movie is that, like, the only way that anyone could win any sort of, like, nuclear war, any sort of, like, wartime situation is to just not play. Like, just don't do it. Like, pacifism is obviously the answer here, is kind of what the movie's preaching. Does that message hold up? Would an audience be as receptive to it today as they were in the 80s?
I think that message holds up when it comes to thermonuclear war.
Oh. Absolutely.
I don't think if you look at something like misinformation, I don't think I don't think being passive on that is the way to go. I think you need to fight that. I think there are certain things that you just can't be a pacifist on.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I was thinking watching the movie too, without kind of tipping my hand. But like, I like the thermonuclear war thing, like the mutually assured destruction, like that's totally a thing. And I get that is what it is. But I think that there's a lot of problems nowadays that like you can't be passive about because, the old adage that like all that it takes for evil to prevail is for good to do nothing. Like, I don't know if we could have this message. I don't know. What do you think, Ryan?
It's very specific to time and place. I mean,
yeah.
Would that message work out for World War I?
No, probably not.
Every single conflict, every single war has its own unique challenges, and they all start uniquely, they all end uniquely, and it works for a type of warfare where everybody dies. And so it worked for the 80s. And one thing I do have to say for myself, I like this movie. I love this movie. The problem is I hate when they simplify a message like this, where the computer goes, the only way to win is not to play. I'm like, really? Really? You can't come up with it's like, really, you can't really think of something better to say than that. But I mean, I get it. There's that. But I mean, would it resonate today? Kinda. I feel like a lot of our problems that we're dealing with today, excluding misinformation, could be helped by that. Just let them go. Let it be. Don't. This person said their piece. This is what they believe. Do you really need to say anything to them? Do you really need to start an argument over nothing? There's the whole misinformation thing. That's what I mean. Excluding the misinformation, everything else, this works. It's like if you're talking about tax code, somebody says this. Well, this is what they believe. They believe in a flat tax. Okay, cool. This is what I believe. Fine. Done.
Yeah, don't engage.
There's no needing to trying to change their point of view on anything.
Yeah, I like the message. I like the message that this movie didn't intentionally send of don't believe everything you see on a computer screen. Now that we're talking about disinformation.
Yeah.
Because that was actually a tense moment. Like, I understand that the arc of the movie is that the handsome, aged scientist is, of course, correct about all of this, and so is young Matthew Broderick. But there was that moment where they were like, okay, the nukes are going to hit. They're going to hit. They're blowing up now. And there was they kept trying to reach the different stations and they weren't answering. That was tense. I had a moment where I was like, ooh, did this happen? I know it didn't. But you kind of go along with the movie.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, and that's that set that whole thing took part on. Was the most expensive movie set built in Hollywood at that point. It was $1 million to build NORAD. Now, they did go on a tour of NORAD to like get an idea about like the layout. They were not allowed into the command center. A picture was released, I think 12 years ago, finally like unclassified, of what like of like what the command center looked like in the early 80s, and it's very underwhelming. It's basically 2 or 3 of those huge monitors on like a slanted ceiling with like 4 rows of desks. That's it.
Gross.
It's really nothing too impressive.
I feel like a lot of stuff like that is more like form or function over form, though. Like the president's command center is like an oak desk, and like that's it.
Yeah. So was it? There's that. They even though they had the ability to film outside of NORAD, like they were given permission to like use the entrance and film and do all that for the movie, but they decided not to. They dressed up the tunnel that they used in Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Back to the Future 2. They dressed that tunnel up to be the entrance to NORAD.
No, they didn't.
They did.
I've been in that tunnel. I love that.
It's the same tunnel.
Oh my god, I love that.
That they used in Back to the Future 2 and Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh, that makes me happy.
So there are 2 characters I really want to touch on before we get into like the end stuff. The 2 computer nerds that they go to talk to when he's trying to find like the list. What did you guys think?
I feel like it was like pre-Big Bang Theory, Big Bang Theory. Like they were like, okay, what do computer nerds look like? This guy and this guy, here they are. You got it.
Yeah, what Devin said. I kind of got distracted there. We lost half of this video.
But no, I don't know. The one like overly nerdy computer guy, the thinner one, he just bugged me every time he was on screen.
Yeah, I hated that character.
They almost made him seem like he was like, I don't know.
The nutty professor.
He was a stereotype. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate it.
With all the typing and the hacking, the oi boy.
I figured it out. You have no idea. I figured you go right through Falcon's maze.
Yep. It was like, no, stop it. Stop it.
So as we're talking, I remembered that scene was one of the other scenes that they had done before the director switch.
That makes sense, though. I can see that.
So there's the plus. So 2 of the hackers that they contacted to help write this movie, the one was the guy who found out that he could use a toy whistle he got in a cereal box to tone into a phone so that he could, like make calls for free. So him, and then the other guy, I forget his name, but the one that they talked to, the second one they talked to, he was the one that was proficient at was finding back doors into computer systems. So all of this stuff was brand new and very niche back then, so the general public had no idea about any of this stuff. And they went to the experts who were hackers, who had gotten in trouble for doing stuff like this back then. And the one guy was proficient at like researching. And in fact, the main character, the kid, is based off this hacker who was proficient at, finding out who the programmers were of certain, finding out who the programmers were, finding out what their backdoor passwords would be, and like researching them and trying out that way. The same guy also developed, I think it's called WarGames, War Calling. Where was it? You set up your computer and you do exactly what he was doing, where it's just calling number was it like number after number, and that was developed based on him. So all of the tactics he used was based off that second hacker that they talked to make the movie.
That's really cool.
Which is really cool.
Because I was going to ask if that was real.
Yeah. Yeah. No. It Definitely was.
That's cool.
The general at NORAD is based off the actual general from NORAD that did the tour with the directors and the writers when they were getting stuff together to make the movie. During the tour, the general asked, he was like, hey, can I ask you guys some stuff about the movie you're going to be making about me? Like, jokingly.
Yeah.
So they went out to lunch with him, and they actually wrote like his personality and some of the things that he would say into the script.
That's cool.
Now, my favorite line from this was ad-libbed, and it's from the general himself towards the end. But before I say it, I want to know what your guys is like. What quote, what line stands out to you?
Honestly, and this is for a weird reason, I never learned to swim was my favorite line of this movie. Because dang it, I didn't expect a movie about a computer called the Whopper playing a video game to make me feel something. Matthew Broderick, thank you.
It's what Matthew Broderick does best, whether it's
It
War
is.
Games, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, or The Producers. He makes you feel. I don't know if I have one off the top of my head.
Okay. Damn it, I'd piss on a spark plug if it'd do any good.
That is a good one, though.
I absolutely love that line.
I think my favorite moment is, like, it's not a line, but when they show the tour group going through, and the tour guide's here, push this button, and then, like, alarms start going off. And it's like, welcome, tour group from Birmingham.
You know, so I was on a tour like that for this thing called, like, the Lost River Caverns. It's a... It's a cave up in the Lehigh Valley or Northampton County somewhere in Pennsylvania, and you go on a tour. They do like 3 or 4 a day or every 30 minutes or whatever, and there's catwalks and they take you down and the glowy rocks, and we don't know where this underground river goes to. They've put dye in the river, all that stuff. I've been on that tour like 6 times between school and Boy Scouts. I was the nerd, the jerk, the asshole per se, that like the tour guide would be saying something, and I'd go, oh, that's because water's been flowing through here for 10,000 years. Like, I cut off the tour guide. I did. I was on that tour so much that, like, I could name everything that they were doing, but I think it was, like, the last time that I, like, did it, I opened my mouth once or twice, and I think the second time I did it, I caught, like, the evil glare from the tour guide, so I stopped. But I said that. I legitimately said that was the first one. And then the second one, it was some question about, does anybody know what, why this happens? And I was like, I raised my hand, and he, like, said, yes. And I gave the answer, and he looked at me, he just looked at me, and then he just continued on. Then I just shut up the rest of the time because I didn't want to get in trouble. But I've seen this movie so much that when they do that, I roll my eyes.
Yeah.
I've gotten to that point. Like, I'm somebody that if I go on a tour more than twice, I get annoyed and I start doing things I shouldn't be doing because I'm that bored. And at this point, watching this movie, they're like, hey, touch that red button right there. And I'll just be sitting at home watching this and going, it's going to go off. It's going to go off.
I actually did think of my actual favorite line, and it's from the beginning of the film when he's in class and the teacher asks, where did asexual reproduction come from? And Matthew Broderick just stands up and says, your wife.
Yeah.
Again, ad-libbed.
It's a good line.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was ad-libbed, and you remember the laughter in that scene, like how it was really loud?
Yeah.
Like louder than like normal? That's because it being ad-libbed, Matthew Broderick knew what he was going to say. Like, they came up with these lines like this, like a minute before they started filming.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, the director knew he was going to say, the teacher knew what he was going to say because the actor wanted to be able to react to it, realistically. But nobody on the set knew what the punchline was going to be. Yeah. So half the laughter you hear is from the set hands. Like, it's from the cameramen and everybody in the background, and they just left the laughter in because it because it worked. So when you watch it and you hear grown men laugh, it's the people behind the camera laughing on set.
That's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right, so do we have final thoughts on WarGames before we wrap this up?
I mean, I really think my final thought was kind of what I said earlier. Like, the movie itself was fun, but it made me feel, and I liked that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it made me feel as much as it made you feel. But I enjoyed it. I'm glad I saw it. Got to cross it off my list. So.
Okay. Well, I'm happy that both of you finally seen it, and I can, and I don't have to worry about Devon making the joke. Oh, I've read Ready Player One. I don't need to see that. So.
I'd much rather him make that joke than, oh, I don't need to see The Shining. I saw Ready Player One, the movie.
Ew.
Yeah. All right, speaking of Devon, I believe next week it's your turn to have us watch something. What do you got for us?
It is. So this actually came from something that happened recently. I found out that, Alan, you've never seen Ratatouille?
I have not.
So first off, my love of Pixar movies is coming out, but also I wanted to talk a little bit about the Ratatouille musical they did for TikTok. So I'm going to make you guys watch Ratatouille.
Wait. There's a movie based on Ratatouille, the TikTok musical?
Oh, no. Oh, that hurt.
Ryan's mind is still in the 80s. He has no idea what TikTok is or what's going on.
No, I'm fine. I had a TikTok account before either of you two did. Just putting it out there.
That's true, though. That's probably true.
True, it is very true, because I remember seeing clips of like stuff from Musical.ly and going, what the hell is this? So I downloaded Musical.ly. I'm like, oh, this is just a bunch of random people doing lip syncing to stuff. And for some reason, there was a huge following of that. The Repo Men movie was based on an opera or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh,
Repo Men, it was
Repo, the genetic opera, yeah.
Repo, the genetic opera. There was a huge thing with like goth teenagers like singing quotes to that on Musical.ly, and then it went from that to TikTok, and then it was one of those things where I'm like, this is all stupid stuff. So I stopped being on it.
Look, it was a weird time. Beetlejuice the musical hadn't come out yet. Goth teens had nothing else to express their emotions to.
But when it did, holy hell, did TikTok take
it. Yo, it ran with it.
It did. They really did. That was also back when they were wearing vampire things for some reason.
Let's save the TikTok chat for next week.
Yeah.
Until then, make sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch what we have of this episode. The rest of it will just be like a picture I do in Photoshop. It'll be nice.
Perfect.
Subscribe to our YouTube. You can listen to the podcast on all major podcasting platforms. So wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. You can email us at youvetoWatchThisPodcast@gmail.com. And stay tuned for next week when we have our first live show as part of a live stream being held by our friends over at Victims and Villains. We will have more details for that next week. But until then, for You Have to Watch This Podcast, I'm Alan.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Devon.
And we'll see you next week.